music for you. This is string players from Plum Grove Junior High Orchestra. We went to April Organizational this year, and we got perfect scores from all three judges. And I think, we're going to play a little pre-meeting music for everyone, and I hope you enjoy. We're going to start a little bit with ball.
Okay, thank you.
Ball. The next piece of music we'll perform is called Lullaby. It's one of my favorite pieces because the composer writes for the junior high age group, so it's an awesome piece of music for these students. like to do one last quick piece, a little more country style of music called Arkansas Traveler.
Thanks very much, String Ensemble. That was terrific. I can see why those judges, all three of them, gave you perfect scores. Thank you.
Will come to order. May I have a roll call, please? Babcock? Here. Chapman?
Here.
Eckert?
Here.
Khan?
Here.
Morrison? Here. Seifert?
Here.
Gurian?
Here.
As always, as we conduct board business, we are always mindful of the mission statement for District 15, which is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community.
And after the mission statement, we always have the pledge, and this evening we're being led by Sunling Sound. So Mr. Jason Dietz, principal, will come up and introduce those students.
Good evening. I brought with me, well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Thompson and the esteemed District 15 Board of Education. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. I brought with me this evening Miss Ann Olson and our Sunling Sound to perform a song for you before we do the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. The Sunling Sound is a group that auditioned to be at a higher level than our chorus. They perform or practice 3 times a week from 7 a.m. to 7:40. There are 27 members in this group. They meet, like I said, 3 days a week. One of their wonderful accomplishments this year was that they actually performed at with the Moscow Ballet Great Russian Nutcracker at the Rosemont Theater in December. So they've had a wonderful year and wonderful accomplishments, and I'm very glad to have brought this group with me here tonight to perform for you and to go ahead with our Pledge of Allegiance. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Ann Olson and allow them to go.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. We're going to sing And So It Goes, our classic Billy Joel. And the soloist is Divya, right here.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Assembling sound members, you come out this way. Oh, I've got a pen for you from the Board of Next item on the agenda is a recognition of our gold medal team that won in basketball. And Mrs. Gehring is going to introduce them and their coaches.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Babcock, and the Board of Education. I am thrilled to present to you tonight your Division II Special Olympics state basketball champions. The athletes you see before you range in age from second graders through eighth graders, and they, along with their coaches, Coach Linda and Coach Cindy, and the parents who supported them and brought them to practices, have been working hard all winter until they went to Illinois State University March 11th and 12th and won the gold medal for the second year in a row for basketball. And it's interesting to note that since Palatine started Special Olympics in the year 2000, they have won 7 state basketball championships, twice in a row. So Coach Linda is going to come to the microphone and introduce to you the athletes.
This is like weird. Can you hear me? Thank you. This is a great celebration for our team. These are great Blue Jays here. So when I call your name, wave and smile so they know who you are, okay? We have Lucas Cross. Zach Fuller. Jackson Talion. Armand Samuels. Aiden McCurley. Emmett Maud. Dylan Reese. Faith DiPaolo. Keone Majulara. Brian Carroll. 2 of our athletes were not able to come. They are Juan Rojas and John Constantino. And our coaches, Terry Storino could not be here tonight, but she's been the main coach forever. Cindy Friesen is here. Amanda Carlstrom could not be here. Myself and my son Justin Zerb's coaches when we are down at state. I'd like to let you know that when we play our games, the referees decide the athlete that will win the Ron Kinsley Sportsmanship Award. On our Friday game, John Constantino won, and on Saturday, Jackson Talion won. And I'd like to just remind everybody, in case you don't know, we fundraise, and we have a Candlelight Bowl Saturday, April 30th at Poplar Creek Bowl. If you need any more information, please contact Terry Storino. We would love to have you there. It's a lot of fun, and it's for a very good cause.
Nice job, guys.
Nice job.
Good job.
Nice job. Congratulations.
Nice job, Coach.
Congratulations.
Hey, nice job, guys. Nice job. Nice job, guys.
Good for you. Good for you.
Sit here, but you guys play. That's awesome. You look like you're enthusiastic.
That's the first time I've ever gotten a pen. I usually get a pen. That was nice. We're recognizing some more students in our next section, and I'm going to ask Kate Ehrenberg, our Coordinator of Fine Arts, to come up and make those presentations.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Thompson, and everyone present this evening. On Saturday, February 6th, District 15 had 276 solo and ensembles performed at the annual Illinois Grade School Music Association, IGSMA, contest held at MacArthur Middle School in Prospect Heights. All of our students did a terrific job representing our district's music program. These students spent many hours practicing with their band, orchestra, or choir teacher, and spent many hours practicing at home to perfect their piece of music. Out of those 276 solos and ensembles, District 15 had 29 perfect solo scores and 14 perfect ensemble scores. The Plum Grove Orchestra also competed in the organizational contest that was held on Saturday, March 12th at Wood Oaks Junior High School in Northbrook, and they also received a perfect score. And we had some wonderful music before the meeting this evening from some of those members. Congratulations to all of these hardworking students and for all of their efforts. Tonight we would like to recognize the students that received a perfect score, and we'll start with Sunling.
We'll start with recognizing the Sunling Band and Orchestra students who received perfect scores at the IGSMA contest. We have Natalie J. for her flute duet, Aditya K. for his trombone trio, Connor L. for his guitar solo, Ian M. 2 events, a bassoon solo and a piano solo, Alyssa R. for her flute duet, Matthew R. for his trombone trio, and Colin A. for his trombone trio. Please give these students a round of applause.
And I will introduce our Sunling vocalists who got perfect scores. We have Isabel Kay and Sarah Ellisher and Fiona and Divya Murali, who also got a perfect score not only as a soloist but as part of an ensemble. And Otis D. Sorry, I couldn't see you down there. So congratulations to all you for your wonderful singing. Thank you.
And Plum Grove?
Nice work. Yeah, congratulations.
Okay, I'm Lorraine Wiestrom, the band director at Plum Grove Junior High, and, I'm happy to report we had 10 perfect scores from our band, jazz band students. Tonight we have a representation of them here. First of all, we have Sung Jun, played a wonderful clarinet solo from 8th grade, and our 7th graders here tonight, Ellie, who played a beautiful flute solo, Stella, beautiful flute solo, Anna, beautiful flute solo, Alina, beautiful flute quartet, who was also in the quartet with Anna and Stella and another gal, Lena, who couldn't make it tonight. So those are our students from the band department at Plum Grove.
Hello, I'm Julie Quitschow. I'm orchestra over at Plum Grove Junior High, Whiteley Elementary, and also at Pleasant Hill Elementary. The students we heard play tonight, many of them couldn't stay, but the ones that represented our perfect score orchestra this year were Gina, Maya, Emily, Lucy, Thomas, Tyler, and Sua. Many had to leave this evening. But then our perfect scores for solo and duets, we had a viola duet, Aiko and Thomas, who had to go, who were perfect scores. We had another perfect solo for viola. Aiko also got a perfect solo for viola. And then Emily Howe here, who got a perfect in both her solo and with the orchestra. So she had a double perfects this year. So thank you.
And then for vocal ensemble from Plum Grove, we have Snea and Jade. Do you want to give a wave out there? Tell us right there. Thank you, Plum Grove. Nice job. And we we have Hannah and Hunting Ridge.
Nice work.
Hello, I'm Mary. Hello, I'm Mary Kempen. I'm the orchestra teacher at Hunting Ridge, Lincoln's, Willow Bend, Kimball Hill, and Thomas Jefferson. And I have with me tonight Soyin, who got a perfect score on her violin solo as a sixth grader at an ensemble contest, and couldn't be here tonight was Ryan, who got a perfect score from Paddock on his violin solo.
Hi, my name is Yufan Smith. I'm the comprehensive music teacher at Winston Campus Elementary. And this year we have 2 sets of vocal entries, and we have 1 quartet. And over there we have Darby and Jenna, and 2 of their quartets couldn't make it today. It's Nishika and Marie, and they got a perfect score, 5th graders, first time participating in IGSMA. And then next we have Emma. She did a vocal solo and got a perfect score as well.
Also from Winston Elementary, we have Kendall, a cellist who performed with Rachel, who couldn't make it tonight. They did a duet together and scored a perfect score. And then to her right, there's Maddie, and she had 2 entries, both with perfect scores, 1 for drum set and 1 for cello solo. From Winston Junior High, we had a perfect score from Laura and Alyssa, a violist and violinist and violist respectively, who played a duet together.
Also from Winston Junior High in the band category, we had Stefan, who scored a perfect score on his piano solo and also his trumpet solo, and Danielle, who scored a perfect on her euphonium solo.
Hello, I'm Bob Moffett, and we conclude with our vocal duet, Tess and Abby. Thank you.
And Carl Sandberg?
Nice job.
Congratulations.
Great job, guys. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Colleen Martinez. I am the orchestra director at Carl Sandburg Junior High, and we have Ricky and Jennifer, who scored a perfect score on their violin duet.
Hi, I'm Dave Wilkie for band, and I had, they could not make it tonight, but Jonas and Gunbir playing an alto sax duet got a perfect score.
TJ.
And for Thomas Jefferson band, we had Maddie and Elena do a saxophone duet and got a perfect score also.
And Lincoln School?
Hi, my name is Amanda Wise. I am a music teacher at Lincoln as well as a choir director, and I am proud to announce Sophie, who received a perfect score. She's a 5th grader, and she performed Naughty from Matilda.
And Miriam Jordan?
Hello, my name is Mrs. Julie Kirka. I'm the band director at Kimball Hills, Central Road, and Marion Jordan Schools. And I would like to introduce Brooklyn, who performed a perfect solo for piano, and Jamie, who had a perfect score for violin from Marion Jordan.
Good evening. My name is Linda Sullivan, and I'm the band teacher at Pleasant Hill and Frank C. Whiteley. And this is Noah, and he performed a clarinet solo. This is his third year. He's gotten a perfect score 3 years in a row and started playing at the ripe old age of 5. So very accomplished musician. So thank you.
And Virginia Lake. Ian is from Virginia Lake, and he scored a perfect solo score on the tenor saxophone. Nice job, Ian. We applaud the hard work of all of our music students and thank all of our music teachers for all the time that they have spent with their students and giving them support and helping them prepare for their competition. District 15 was very well represented at the IGSMA contest this year. Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ehrenberg. The next item in my section is a brief staffing report from Dr. Barbini.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Babcock, and members of the Board of Education. Timing is everything, and I have to follow all that recognition, so I'll do the best that I can. Allocating resources is perhaps one of the most important things that a school administrator does in terms of meeting the needs of the kids that are before him or her. How are those important decisions made? Well, in District 15, they're made in 3 very important ways. The first deals with staffing guidelines, the second deals with teamwork, and the third deals with a commitment to an ongoing review. So let's talk a little bit about staffing guidelines. Currently, we have board targets that assist us in terms of making decisions about how classes in general education are staffed. Those targets include kindergarten at 20, first through third grades at 24, grades 4 through 6 at 26, and grades 7 through 8 at 28. A target is something that we aim for. That does not mean that we always hit that number. Sometimes we're below, sometimes we're at, sometimes we're over. Another area that we have guidelines on, or guidance to help us make decisions about how we allocate staff to meet the needs of students, falls in the realm of special education, whereby the Illinois State Board of Education has provided public schools with a formula based on student need to determine how we staff to meet the needs of our students who are special education eligible. That is based on the percentage of time that a student who's IDEA eligible or special ed eligible receives special education services. And the third area that we have guidelines on falls in the realm of our English language learners, where the state, once again, has guidelines for us in terms of how we staff self-contained classrooms in terms of meeting at 90% of whatever the gen ed target is at that classroom. So we look at each of those 3 areas: board targets, special education staffing guidelines, and ELL staffing guidelines to help us begin to make decisions about how we are going to go about meeting the needs of the students that are presented before us. The second thing I talked about deals with teamwork. I'm a firm believer that none of us are as strong or as smart as all of us. In terms of how this comprehensive staffing process occurs is, and it began actually in the early fall, October, November-ish, where principals, the Department of Instruction, Student Services, personnel, and my office met to go over what the staffing guidelines are, to go over what the staffing plan was last year, and really begin looking at student enrollment and going about meeting the needs of students through the staffing guidelines that I just reviewed. During those conversations, we committed to meeting with each building principal at least one time to talk about the needs of the students in his or her building, once again, while focusing in on our staffing guidelines established by you, the board, special education and ELL, or English language learners, at the state level. The third thing that I mentioned in terms of how these decisions are made is that ongoing review piece. due to the fact that enrollment changes on a daily basis, and that what we look at right now in terms of our numbers is going to change between now and the start of the school year, we do have a commitment, because it is truly all about the kids, to continuously monitor the needs of our kids and the enrollment of our kids from this point in time in the year until the start of the school year. And so what does that look like? Well, the principals are tremendous advocates for the kids in their buildings. So the principals are actively encouraged, and they don't need much encouragement, to communicate with me when they have sections based on enrollment that are approaching or are exceeding board targets. We also have unbelievable advocacy here at the central office in terms of Mrs. Susan Gehring, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, advocating for the needs of students who receive special education services, as well as Dr. Cheryl Wolfel, who advocates for the needs of our English language learning students. So it's pretty regular to see both Sue and Cheryl in my office updating me as fluctuations and student enrollment changes, and it warrants additional conversations about staffing. And that goes back to the none of us are as smart as all of us. As much as I'm responsible for compiling the student assignment plan, it really is a team effort where I rely on a variety of people to help make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and giving them the opportunities, much like we saw this evening, to succeed and thrive and achieve in our schools. So we do have that ongoing review as well, and that will lead to a final staffing report or student assignment report that is typically presented to the board in the first regular business meeting in September, and that's where everything will be finalized for next year. And I would be remiss, and I know I've said it now a couple of times or more than that about teamwork. Many of the folks that made this presentation and ultimately the presentation in September possible are in this room, and I would like to recognize them by name because they care about kids, they're very talented, and they advocate in terms of allocating resources to meet the needs of kids where and when they do exist. And I mentioned Sue Gehring, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Dr. Cheryl Wolfel, who leads World Languages, Dr. Meg Schnorr, who is our lead in the Department of Instruction, Dr. Tom Edgar, who's our assessment director, and he handles gifted, Dr. Miriam McClurkin, who handles our reading programs, and then, last but not least, our personnel department, Adam Palmer, who helps us allocate our paraprofessionals as well as our specials teachers. So the music teachers that came tonight and recognized their kids and who are worthy of recognition themselves, Adam helps with that. Actually, he basically does that. Thank you, Adam. And then last but certainly not least, I want to mention Lisa Nuss, who is our Executive Director of Personnel. I handle the numbers. I look at enrollment, and I handle the numbers. The Personnel Department handles the people who represent those numbers, who serve our kids. And Lisa, in her first year, has been a tremendous partner, and she has really helped us have conversations about people needing to change assignments, etc., to be able to continue to meet the needs, emerging, existing, and otherwise, of our students. So Lisa, thank you very much for your partnership and the rest of the team. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. My back is turned to them, so I'm sure that there might be some faces if I missed anybody. Totally inadvertent if I did. But that's basically it. We are going to continue to monitor at this point in time, and I'm looking forward to presenting a final student assignment report in September.
Thank you, Dr. Barbini. Any questions?
One of the groups that's not mentioned is our pre-K program. Does that fall within our?
Some of the early childhood programs do, and they're primarily in special ed. But Matt, how many preschool students do we serve in the district?
So we currently serve approximately 750 pre-K or pre-kindergarten students ages 3, 4, and 5. 500 of that 750 are served through our partnership with the ECDEC program. So that's 500. The remaining 250 students are primarily served at John Conyers Learning Academy in our early childhood special education program. So once again, about 750 total students.
So,
go ahead.
Not wrong, mistaken, and there are about 200 on the waiting list that qualify for our services, which we have not been able to serve because of our facilities.
Or because of the lack of facilities, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
The 500 that Matt referred to is paid through a grant, and it's hired through the ECDEC organization, so we don't handle those, but we do handle the 250 that are at Conyers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Appreciate Matt doing that. Just a heads up on the process and let you know that we're on top of it. And we try very hard to make sure that we don't hire teachers until we know they're needed, just so that we are financially responsible. At this time, I would like to invite up members from the Facilities Plan Committee, version 2.0, and they're going to present the results of all their hard work to you tonight. Presentation table for you this evening. We have Dave Border, Amber Danielchek, Matt Tepper, and Chief Bob Flardo.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, on behalf of the Facilities Planning Committee, version 2.0, I'd like to appreciate and thank for the opportunity to become part of this group. My name's Matt Tepper, like Scott Thompson said. I'm an architect at Green Associates Architects, and a parent. I've got a first grader and a fourth grader at Virginia Lake right now, and it's been a great experience. The Facilities Planning Committee, we started meeting 4 to 5 months ago, about once every month. There was about 20 to 25 of us that participated at every single meeting, so it was a quite robust and diverse group of educators. The administration took part of it. Your architect of record and your construction manager took part of some of the meetings as well. And so they'll introduce themselves as they kind of move forward. And just as a quick recap,
Matt, can we maybe have the representatives, are you going to do that later or now? Representatives that are in the audience that are on the committee? Tom Sharkey, Violetta, I see Kelly, and I see...
Kathy Millen and Matt.
Oh, and there's Kathy Millen. Tiffany is there, I can see Tiffany. Thank you all, committee members that represented all aspects of the community, really. So, excuse me, Matt.
No problem. And just to backtrack a little bit, just to touch base on what the first committee kind of formed together and did as a little bit of background. Most of the first committee was developing plans and recommendations for the life safety A, B's, and C's categories, kind of moving forward through things. And they've started kind of the communication and the process to move forward of the status of the facilities and where to take it moving forward. And then in that, the development from that kind of moved into the next thing of how can we develop and adopt a long-range plan to kind of address these issues as well as potentially other issues that are kind of within the district and all the district facilities, and discuss other options. Funding options is one that was here that was briefly discussed on the previous one, and then to continue engaging in the community to figure out, where the direction of the district and the facilities need to go over the next long-term plan. So the goals that were kind of created and focused upon by the V 2.0 committee are listed up there. And just kind of keep moving forward with what the first committee did and kind of keep pushing the momentum forward while focusing still on the education of the students to promote 21st century learning spaces and how the facilities now can facilitate it or where maybe shortfalls are in the facilities. And of course, always our first mind is to make sure that the taxpayers' money is being well invested and well taken care of for the educational purposes of the district. But some of the things that we kind of were identified real quickly, and then my colleagues will help kind of describe that a little bit further, through discussion with the administration and some information through demographics and population dispersions and everything, we've kind of realized that some of the goals that we needed to pay attention to were identifying where schools needed to potentially be built or where students and populations resided that might not have been served as directly with facilities in their vicinity. And then the potential to look at building fewer schools but larger ones to maybe reduce multiple facilities, maintenance costs, and upkeep costs, and how that factors in to the whole district as a whole. And then one of the main things that was brought in as well was to try to align elementary schools to middle schools to the schools that they're going to feed into in high school, so that there's students aren't kind of spending 1 or 2 years in one place and then kind of being broken apart from their developed population because they're going to be going to a completely different high school than another track is going. And so those were a lot of the goals that were kind of in the frame of mind, always trying to keep the students in mind in their educational status and how they are learning in the process. And then so there was 2 broad goals that were brought forward, which will be addressed a little bit further.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Babcock, and members of the school board. My name is Amber Danielchuk, and I am a proud former District 15 student, as well as I'm a parent in the community. I have a son at Lake Louise and a daughter at Winston campus. And for the past 17 years, I've been a member of the education within the district. So needless to say, I have a little bit of a passion for District 15, and I was honored to be part of this committee and the work that we're bringing forth to you tonight. As Matt addressed, that when we convened as a committee, we decided to come up with 2 overreaching goals that would kind of guide what we were thinking about and proposing to you tonight. The first one was looking at addressing the educational needs of all of our students. And some of the things that we looked at, the first being all-day kindergarten. I know one of the statistics I was surprised by is that 90% of Illinois now has full-day kindergarten, or they're in the process of implementing. So when we talked about this as a committee, we thought that this was something that we really need to take into consideration moving forward in our planning stages of what's to come. The second thing we looked at was providing a location for intensive services for our English language learners. Are we meeting those needs fully? And is there something that we could do to better fully meet the needs of those English language learners? You all are very much aware that capacity is an issue in our district. Our buildings are all currently at full capacity. What do we do when we have run out of classrooms and we have portables and we're eliminating computer labs to try and meet the needs, sometimes getting creative with places in the library, and what are we going to do moving forward if this is continuing to be an issue? We also wanted to look at how that is impacted when we have new developments being put in Hoffman Estates and in Palatine. We have lots of new housing developments going in, which is going to have a direct impact on our student enrollment. And we wanted to look down the road and be proactive in some of the goals that we set up. So the second area that kind of helped guide our work was looking at improving the accessibility and the organization of the schools that we currently have in place. So the first item is looking at expanding the community school program in the areas where our families are. And I know for me, and I think I can speak for most of our committee members, the largest thing that really struck me is that 22% of our student population in the entire district is serviced from a one mile area, and there's not a school there. and the impact that has both as parent involvement within the school, the community feel that students would have. So I think that was one area that we felt was definitely something that we needed to address. The other area was looking at reducing student time on buses and how that would look as far as transportation expenses. For looking at how our district is running right now, we have students that sometimes are on buses for 45 minutes. And to me, that doesn't sound so bad when you're thinking of the big kids, but when you start thinking of our little 3- and 4-year-olds that are on a bus for 45 minutes, that's concerning. And is there something that we can do to eliminate some of that transportation time? We wanted to look at reducing the amount of funding being spent on the maintenance of our oldest buildings. It's not a secret, our district's been around a long time and our buildings are old. And we need to do something about that. And is our tax dollars being best spent by feeding into our old buildings, or do we need to look at maybe proposing building of new schools or adding on to schools that we currently have? Like Matt mentioned, one of the key ideas that many of our members were very passionate about is the idea of all of our junior high schools being aligned with the high school that they will feed into. We had committee members that know what it feels like to go to a junior high and not want to make friends because in another year or two they're going to go to a completely separate high school. So they didn't have that social bonding that as an educator I can tell you is imperative to really continuing to meet the needs of our students. And then another area we wanted to look at was being able to provide that increased opportunity for our students who are eligible for our preschool programming. I know Dr. Eckberg mentioned earlier, I think it's interesting that our district does a great job servicing kids at an early age, but the problem is we still have 200 students that aren't being serviced because they're on a waiting list. And it's because we don't have the facilities or the capacity to be able to service them right now. And we know that early intervention is such a huge key to success in education, and there is a trickle-down effect. So if we can do something about that, we felt it was an area we wanted to continue to address. So keeping those two goals in mind, we created some criteria to come up with some proposals to share with you this evening. The first criteria was, how many classrooms do we need? If we're going to build schools or change boundaries or look at all these different ideas, how many actual classrooms would we need? We also looked at the impact of the enrollment at other schools. So if we made a change here, how would that fall with all of the other buildings? We looked at our transportation savings. Would there be a savings if we made some adjustments, and how much would those cost savings be? We looked at estimated construction costs, whether that be with building new buildings or making changes to the current facilities that we have. And then lastly, looking at utilizing our district-owned properties, and is that something that we wanted to continue looking into? So with that, we came up with 4 viable options that we felt would meet or fall in those 2 broad goals, as well as meet the criteria that we established as a committee. The first option was looking at building an elementary school in the northeast quadrant where that 22% now is that's not being serviced by a facility in their community. The second option was looking at junior high school in the western part of the district, so building something on our current Elo Road property, but then taking that and converting Carl Sandburg Junior High School to a K-8 building, so that way we could then make the adjustment of students feeding into Carl Sandburg going to just Rolling Meadows High School, so there wouldn't be a combination of Rolling Meadows High School students and Fremd High School students. The third option was looking at building a K-8 building in the western section of the district. By making it a K-8 building, would that have an impact on our enrollment? Would that meet the needs that we were hoping to with all of our goals? And lastly, the fourth option was looking at kind of a hybrid of all of those, building a middle school in the western part of our district on the Elo Road property, but then converting the rest of our junior high schools to a middle school model of 6th, 7th, and 8th. The biggest reason for that is if you look at the changes in curriculum, you look at Common Core standards, everything is being directed 6th, 7th, and 8th. So if we're taking on this big, audacious goal, now's the time, if we're going to make a change, now would be the time to do that. Let's make it switch to the 6th, 7th, and 8th model. Plus, it would also help give one extra year of bonding for students being together for that additional year could help create such a positive environment. And in doing so, what we would do is align all of the schools, the junior high schools, with the high school of their attendance. So that means all of the Friend High School students would either be at Plum Grove Middle School or what we would refer to as the new Southwest Middle School. Any of the Rolling Meadows High School students would attend Carl Sandburg Middle School, and then any of the Palatine High School students would attend Sun Lane Middle School or Winston Middle School. So really, those were the four big ideas that we wanted to share with the board tonight, and Dave Porter is going to go ahead and explain what our recommendation is.
Good evening. I'm Dave Porter. Had the pleasure of serving on the committee with my colleagues here. I have two students at Pleasant Hill Elementary, a second and a fourth grader, and a longtime resident of the district. So very interested in building a strong foundation for us to continue to grow and succeed. As Amber highlighted, we had a number of recommendations or options that we looked at, and the recommendation that we came to is really a combination of those pieces that work together as a system to create the broadest application to the goals that we align to. So the recommendation in summary is to build a K through 5 elementary school in the northeast part of Palatine. Goal would be to serve approximately 1,200 students, and facilitates the community school concept that was discussed to address the broad needs of residents in that area. Additionally, we would propose to build a middle school in the southwest portion of the district, utilizing the existing district-owned property. And with those two moves, transition all of the junior highs to the middle school concept that Amber just discussed, serving grades 6 through 8, and providing the benefits that she highlighted. Doing those two moves would allow for the alignment of all the junior highs to the high schools and the elementary schools to those junior highs, so that there weren't kids moving in and out of school boundaries as they went from elementary school to middle school to high school. The other piece that this allows is the closing of the oldest school. So rather than continuing to invest significant funds in the maintenance of the oldest building that's requiring a significant investment as part of the life safety studies, repurposing those funds towards the future. When we went back then and looked at the goals that we'd set and tried to measure up the recommendation against those goals, and it really does serve to address a wide variety and virtually all of the goals that we had established up front. So when we talk about the desire to move to full-day kindergarten, the withdrawal of 6th grade from all of the elementary schools provides the necessary facility footprint to make that expansion and facilitate that transition. The desire to provide locations for intensive English language learner studies, the consolidation of that in the school in the Northeast would be a way to expand the program, provide that centralization to it that would be foundational to provide a good basis for learning. Regarding the overcrowding of schools, the need for mobile classrooms, as well as the future growth, with the creation of the two new schools and the removal of grade 6 from all the schools, again, you provide additional growth and space within those schools, within the schools throughout the district, that allows for both the current relief of some of the pressure as well as future expansion across the district. And then the other piece was around the goals of improving the accessibility and the organization of the schools, expanding the community school program in the Northeast. Building that school addresses the large volume of students who spend a significant amount of time on buses in the morning and at the end of the day. Facilitates better family involvement with the school if it's in proximity to where people live, and enables the expansion of services beyond just pure education. So all of the things that have been discussed around the community school program, providing additional services, adult education potential, just a wide variety of services that you could pursue at that point in time. We hit on the reducing student time on buses. We saw this as a significant problem, especially at the earliest ages, where you have kids throughout the district spending significant amount of time on buses. You have the Northeast issue, you have students in the Southwest portion that are spending a significant amount of time on a bus across 53. You've got kids crossing railroad tracks on buses. There's a lot of logistical issues that you could correct and make very seamless with this transition. And lastly, reducing the amount of funding spent on the oldest schools. By retiring the oldest school, you address a significant amount of investment that's required for the life safety studies and are able to spend those taxpayer funds in a more responsible manner. And one of the biggest benefits is the alignment of the junior highs. Some of the bus and transportation issues, the timing of how much time students spend on buses, as well as just the lack of connectivity where students are moving into a school with students that they will be with for 1 or 2 years currently, and then will be displaced back to a different high school from half their junior high in many cases. The final goal we discussed was providing increased opportunities for students eligible for the preschool programs. As was discussed, 200 plus students on the wait list. The expansion of the number of classrooms and the relief of pressure in a number of schools would allow for flexibility in how you address that. Just provides for increased opportunity to address that pressing need. So the recommendation really is the suite of options that we looked at that really work together to provide all of that benefits that we discussed. No one solution addressed the issues. Early on, the committee worked through what if we did this, what if we did this, and was struggling with each solution had benefits, but left a number of good goals on the table that could not be addressed. But by piecing these together, it came together very nicely to address the broad suite of goals in as efficient a manner as possible. Any questions from the board?
General report.
I'll make a comment while people are thinking of questions if they have any. These members tonight presented something that really kind of is a nice presentation, a package, but what isn't shown is the hard work they put in all those sessions, the questions they had, the struggles they had. These didn't just fall into place. They were the result of a lot of hard work, a lot of good questions, a lot of good thinking, and I think it was taking all members of the community into consideration when the final recommendation came into place. And so I want to thank the committee for all of its hard work and excellent presentation tonight. Bob, you've been in the community a long time. Do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. I'm a retired guy, and I had 3 children come through District 15, and I'm very interested and invested in this community, and really want to see the best for it in the future. And this is really a foundation for the future. And I think that we were really we had such a great cross-section of all the different communities that we serve in District 15. And I really thought that everybody really worked very harmoniously in trying to come up with a common goal for the common good. The thing that I really like about this particular plan is that it really gives a positive effect to every single school in every single community. There'll be a positive for everyone. Even though, 2 schools would be built in isolated areas on their own, the overall impact on that district-wide is significant, and really takes care of a lot of ills and for the future. Certainly, and I've been in Palatine for a long time, and I know that I've been around Rolling Meadows as well, Hoffman Estates. Those communities, the values in those communities are based largely on the schools. The quality of the schools, the park districts, the libraries, those all have a very significant impact on the quality of life, the value of your home. I am an empty nester now. My wife and I But we certainly, feel that this is something that would increase the value of our homes and the best of our community. And I think that's something to be considered as well as a taxpayer. Obviously, I don't like increased taxes any more than anyone else, but I think the cost of this is really worthwhile for the positive impact it will have on the communities.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had the opportunity to represent the board and the committee, and I have to tell you, I was really impressed, as Dr. Thompson said. We had tremendous conversations about every issue that was, and I don't think you could have represented it any better. I mean, I was just really impressed. I appreciate the work you did. Thank you.
Do each of you, you worked with the architects, with our project manager, do you feel in your heart, and I think you've said it very, very well, that we are at a crossroads in this district, that we do have to make some significant changes as far as our buildings and our population is concerned? Are you convinced with, I would say so, based on what you're recommending, but
Yeah,
in your
I'd say
heart of hearts?
absolutely from the beginning. The first meeting we went through sort of the pressing needs, the volume of mobile classrooms in use, the amount of kids that were going to schools far from their home, the illogical nature of some of the boundaries and alignment and where things just had evolved over time. All of it needed to be addressed. The opportunities of enhancing some of the services with a community school, providing full-day kindergarten, were good goals, but the compelling nature of change was needed to just address the need for more classrooms and a better structure to support it was extremely compelling from day one.
Again, thank you to the committee for everything. This goes more towards the administration. Scott, have you looked at, so we're net gain of one school. The staffing stay pretty much the same because we're going to realign. Obviously, we're opening up more classrooms to fit in full-day kindergarten and things like that. The staffing, and again, it may be a little bit early to answer that question, but does staffing look similar as you go down the road?
Well, I don't want to get too far down the road, and I want to wait until the board heard the recommendation, and if the board would direct me, I would certainly work on that and come back to you with some information.
Okay.
That's what I was just going to ask. What are you looking from us, from the board?
Well, I think I'd like you to think about the recommendation, and then maybe next month we can talk more in depth about what are the next steps. If you want to embrace their recommendation, want me to do more work to bring to you some of the questions that still remain, some of the information you need, I'd be happy to do that. But that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yes, there we go. There we go.
I have one quick question. You mentioned with regard to full-day kindergarten, 90% of other schools are doing it across the state. How about with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade schools? Is that fairly common across the state as well?
Yeah, I mean, we are one of the very few districts that is just the 7th, 8th grade junior high school model.
Okay.
And if you ask educators in the district, they'll tell you it's about time we start looking at it.
I think if you ask parents in the district too, because I don't think there's a week that goes by that we're not asked about full-day kindergarten and the possibility of it, and we just don't have the facilities for that right now.
Yeah.
So I go ahead, Stephen.
No, sorry, I mean, I think obviously the recommendations sound promising and things that, there's a lot of details that obviously, I agree with everybody. I'm going to have to get a lot of information. Like, for instance, just popped in my head just about, the cost savings that we would get from, eliminating one school and from some of the maintenance cost savings, what those, would approximately be, particularly with the, maintenance things that we have coming up in the next few years. To do the life safety issues. So to actually see, because obviously this is going to be 2 additional schools that we're building, but to see how there's cost savings that offset that is going to be important. Also, one question you had discussed about the importance, and it resonates with me, the importance of keeping the junior high kids all going to the same high school. Is that similar? Have you looked into the similar factors of elementary school children going into the same junior high? Would that change? I know.
Feed. Yeah.
The proposal would be, The rough, again, we'd have to work out all the details, but Dr. Thompson went through some of the logistics of how we could make it work, and the creation of these two schools and the elimination of the one elementary school would facilitate sort of all the elementary schools feeding fully into junior highs without being split. So the elementary school boundaries would live within a junior high school boundary, which would then live within the high school boundary.
Does it make sense to put this presentation on our website to get feedback? What I don't want to do is, work up some questions and wait another month. If there's a next step to go on to, if everyone is in agreement that we want to pursue this, then what are those next steps? If we can put this on and get some feedback, and then with your recommendation, move forward, as opposed to marking time for the next month.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Anyone have an objection to that?
No. Well, again, committee members, thank you very much for your hard work giving up your evenings and for the presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the members that didn't have to come up and take the hot seat in front of everyone. So, thank you.
Tom Sharkey delayed his trip to the New England area just to be here tonight, so thanks, Tom. The last item in my section is just a quick review of the teacher contract that the board is going to consider later this evening. I have to say, this was another terrific process. It was a collaborative process, very unusual for the board's representatives and the teachers' representatives to sit down in a very collaborative, open manner, kind of seeking the good of the community. Each having their own interests, but working together to make sure that the district is moving forward in a very positive way for all parties involved. And so Scott Woldman and his team, Scott is here tonight. Scott, thank you. We spent many afternoons working with it. Mike Adamczyk and Lisa Nuss were on my team. We met on several occasions, and it was a tremendously healthy, positive, productive process. I think we all became better people because of it, and I think we had a better outcome as a result of the way that we approached this. It was Scott's idea to sit down and try to do this, and I think that we've come up with a contract that will put the district in a strong position moving forward, both financially and academically, well into the future. So I think we can be pretty excited about that. So it's a 10-year contract. During that time, I think Mike Adamczyk will be able to make a lot of predictions because he'll have the actual figures. A lot of times we have to guess on certain things, and so he'll be able to use those actual dollar amounts to make projections that will help us with long-term financial planning. It gives teachers reasonable increases, but it's also a very reasonable cost to the district and the taxpayers that we serve. So we're able to attract and retain quality teachers because of the contract, but the overall cost for the salaries each year is less than 1%. So it's a very reasonable amount of money. I think people, when they hear this, they'll be shocked at the low cost that is associated with the contract. It resolves the problem of a Tier 2 salary schedule, or Tier 2 salary schedule was put in place to try to correct some deficits in our budget to save us some money. It did an excellent job at doing that, but it's also created kind of a division amongst our teachers, some that see for, down the road, they're going to be paid significantly different than people who were here a few years before them. And so it's created a problem for us to attract teachers, and there have been some teachers that have left other districts because they could look at the salary projections going forward, and because they were on the Tier 2 schedule that was not as appealing as the Tier 1 schedule, they were leaving. And so this solves that problem. It allows Tier 2 employees to move over to the Tier 1 schedule, but it also helps the district with its finances because it continues to help us save money, but it also helps us long-term with our teaching staff. There are some savings that will be realized through our program assistant allocation. Right now, it's a very formal formula that's used to assign the number of hours for program assistants at each building. Oftentimes, the administration could get a little frustrated because the number of hours that were associated weren't really focused on what we thought were the needs. And so our agreement, this contract that you're going to consider tonight, allows for more flexibility. It doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily reduce a large number of program assistants. I think we're going to be able to use them a little more efficiently. And through attrition, I think we'll be able to save some money in the long run over the 10 years. There was I think some mutual benefit to a tuition reimbursement guideline change. Our teacher workday, again, that was I think something we both wanted. We have research that shows us that the teachers, when they talk together and work on what they're doing in the classroom with each other, it makes a better educational experience for kids. And so our Friday afternoons, a couple more of them a month are going to be designated for teachers to work together so that they can work on making sure that what they're doing in the classroom is the right thing for kids and they're working collaboratively instead of independently. We have our elementary specialist teachers that in a few years will be having the same number of contact minutes as their regular elementary teachers do, the regular elementary classroom teachers. And so we've kind of increased that, and I think over the course of the 10 years we'll be able to save some money through efficiencies there. We made some changes on leaves that I think are beneficial to both the board and to the teachers. For many years we've had a retirement benefit that was given to the teachers to send them off into retirement. And we have made a change so that now it's a retirement incentive, so that it allows us to compensate and congratulate and fairly reward teachers that have worked in the district a long time, but we're asking them to access this benefit at the earliest time possible. And by doing that, we're sending them off into retirement, but we're sending the most expensive teachers into retirement, and we're hiring new teachers. We probably can get 2 teachers for the cost of just one of those teachers. And so it's a mutually beneficial thing, and the retirement incentive now is really a true incentive. So I think, all in all, as with any contract, it's never perfect. Neither side gets exactly what they want, and you know that we struggle with some things. We talked to the board about some things. The length of a 10-year contract is something when you're not completely sure about finances going forward, but we wouldn't have gotten, I think, this mutually beneficial agreement for a shorter period of time. And so I think weighing all the things, we believe this is a very fair contract for both sides, and we think really ultimately will benefit the kids and the community long term. Okay, that's it for my section.
Before we move on to reading and acceptance of the minutes, if there's any, I have a few requests to address the board. If anyone else is interested, there are the green sheets in the front lobby. Feel free to fill that out and get them to Mrs. Becker, and we will get to that shortly. We're on to reading and acceptance of the minutes. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education. March 2nd, 2016, Special Board of Education meeting and executive session. March 9th, 2016, Special Board of Education meeting and executive session. And the March 9th, 2016, regular Board of Education meeting as presented.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Moving on to board discussion and reports. Ed Redd.
Just
Dr. Chapman.
briefly, I think it's fair to say that the fights have started in Springfield relative to school funding. And as you probably heard, the city of Chicago is claiming that they're getting a disproportionate share of state funding. I don't believe that, but they're suggesting that more state funding go to the city schools to ease their financial problems. However, I just want to make the board aware that we do have the Ed-Red group that is working not only for District 15's best interest, but the other area, suburban schools. So we're going to continue, and Mike has been keeping me up to date on that, and we'll continue to monitor that. If there's any news, we'll get it to the board as quickly as we can. Obviously out of our control, but we are trying to do the best job we can in terms of influencing the decisions that are made down there.
And it sounds, our friend Andy Menar's back with the new bill, Senate Bill 231.
Oh, yes.
He's renamed it and resubmitted it.
Right. As I said, the fight's on.
District 15 Educational Foundation, Dave?
Nothing to report from the foundation. They are looking for trustees, of anyone that would like to participate on the foundation board. If anyone is interested, to contact the website, or Tim Neck is the chairman of the foundation, if you're interested in serving on the foundation.
And I see there was a flyer in our book with the Got to Run.
Yeah. Sorry. We do the Got to Run program every year. May 21st is the Got to Run program again. And contact Donna Kennedy at the foundation also to sign up for that too.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Moving on to the next item, Palatine Board Agreements, the Board of Education Agreements. Every 2 years, we go through a board self-evaluation where our IASB representative comes and meets with the board, and it is one of the few opportunities that we have a chance for the entire board to sit down to work out. Traditionally, it's when new board members come on to work out different agreements as to how we want to operate. We have 7 individuals who come together to reach decisions as one board. Barbara Toney, our IASB rep, worked with us on 2 occasions and gives us best practice. We work on the agreements. The agreements are enclosed in our book. You all have them. These were all agreed upon by every board member. There was consensus reached on, not even consensus, it was a unanimous decision, and everyone participated. These board agreements will be voted on later in our meeting, and they will also be posted on the District 15 website. And I thank all of you for your time. I know that it was, on 2 different occasions and 4 to 6 hours, so I do appreciate you spending the time with us. Okay, we're going to move on to board policy, the first reading of the board policy. Dr. Bardini.
Good evening again. This evening, we are presenting, the administration is recommending the first reading of a policy, 7:290, student suicide and depression awareness and prevention. Pursuant to state law, every public school district in the state is required now to develop, implement, and maintain a suicide and depression awareness and prevention program. School districts are also required to have their boards review and develop a policy in that area as well. So the policy that is presented for you this evening for first reading is through the Illinois Association of School Boards Policy Review and Subscription Service, otherwise known as PRESS, and the administration is recommending the policy language verbatim from the Policy Subscription Service in this particular area. I do want to point out that this district is doing some excellent preventative work in this very serious area of student suicide and student depression already. That's very important for me to mention. For the past 5 years, this district has partnered with Alyssa's Mission, which is a nonprofit agency in our community, to deliver high-quality professional development for our staff, our students, and our parents in the areas of signs and symptoms of suicide. There's screening components associated with that as well, where people, if they see any of these signs and symptoms of any of our students, can then report that to the school, and then the school quickly evaluates that. All right. Connects with community agencies that can support kids and families in need, contacts the families, and in several instances over the course of the last 5 years, we have identified students that are at risk for suicide and depression, and we have been able to quickly give them the help they need. So this is an example of a policy requirement that the state is saying that boards need to adopt and that school districts need to have for their students. I'm proud to say that we already have a program program in place that does meet many, if not all, of the requirements with respect to this new law in terms of education, screening, awareness, and then partnerships. And that's why I mentioned Alyssa's mission. That's the good news. The not so good news is it is a serious issue. It does require continuous monitoring, et cetera. We also know that the state is going to be providing additional guidance in terms of this edict, and it's an important one, in terms of our early elementary grades as well. And so we're waiting to see what the guidance is from the state before, we begin expanding that program, because we want to align with what the state is saying we need to do. But we do have a very solid program that has helped kids and families, all right, that we've had in place for the past 5 years. That ends my report.
I just have one suggestion. I don't want to be insensitive, but in the policy, there's several references to Anne Marie's law. I don't think our policy should be that specific. I think it's one thing to say we're going to be in compliance with the Illinois state law or the Illinois state code, but I don't think anywhere else in our policy that we go so specifically to name the specific law to which it applies. So I'd like to see if you could clean that up. That's just my view on it.
Yeah.
Other people disagree. I mean, I think we want to be broader than that and say we're going to be in compliance with all the state statutes.
Matt will look into that and see if it's a requirement that we have someone named, we'll do that. If not, I think you're right, that we work with the Bridge, we work with hospitals, a lot, Alexian Brothers, so we work with a lot of agencies, so I think you're right.
Good point.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you.
We are going to be moving on to citizens addressing the board, and we have a few. So, to get this started, we will now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember, this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone previously has articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than reiterating the entire comment. Finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member, respecting their right to privacy. This is not the forum to comment on personnel issues. With that being said, first we have Stephanie, is it Boucher? Yeah. Stephanie.
Stephanie, right here at the front table with the microphone, please.
I think I know how to do this.
No.
The school board and Dr. Thompson, thank you for letting me have a minute here. My name is Stephanie Boucher. I am a parent at Willow Bend. I'm also an alumna of Willow Bend and Carl Sandburg, so this is near and dear to me. My dad, Scott Boucher, who many of you know, could not be here today, so he has written something for me to read in regards to the potential adding of schools / rearranging of populations. So, hi, my name is Scott Boucher. I live in Rolling Meadows, and my granddaughter attends Willow Bend. My daughter shared a district newsletter with me that discussed the idea of adding a school in the northeast portion of the district. The goal would be to help alleviate the current overcrowding in the district and reduce transportation expenses. The area under discussion is heavily populated with apartment complexes and currently split among 5 schools. Before proceeding with this idea, you should take a very careful look at the demographics of this area. Placing a building there could create a school that is dominated by minorities with high mobility rates and lower incomes. At the same time, you would reduce the minority percentages in the number of the other schools. This, unfortunately, is the definition of discrimination. The lawyers will descend on us like hungry locusts. Again, that's my dad. I have done some digging, and it appears that this is a part of a larger plan that includes building more schools and redistricting to reallocate our student population. At Willow Bend, my granddaughter has over 600 schoolmates. When my daughters went there, the school population was under 300. Population changes are constant in our district, but a district-wide effort to change boundaries is quite a huge undertaking. My advice would be to move carefully and err on the side of including as wide a group of residents as you can. A large working committee of shareholders, frequent community meetings, and open discussions at board meetings are essential. To make this happen will require not only study, but a whole lot of money. I cannot see how you can do this without a tax increase to pay for the new buildings and all the logistics that are involved. But if you do want to undertake this difficult journey, I am willing to push up my shirt sleeves and lend a hand. Also, if it could be asked, was anybody from Rolling Meadows included in this committee? Because a lot of the schools sounded from one area. We just want to make sure our population is being heard as well.
Yeah, we're not going to have a dialogue, Stephanie, but Tiffany Ferguson was definitely there, and I think, Tiffany, there was somebody else, wasn't there?
You could have responded back to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane Van Woveleer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Your ghost from the past is back. Okay, first and foremost, sitting back there, I decided the educators of our generation failed all of us. There seems to be nothing called common sense left in the American population. The first thing, I know it's not a dialogue, I'm going to make an assumption, and if my assumption is incorrect, somebody say, Jane, you're wrong. I'm assuming you have paid a consultant regarding building new schools and getting advice. If that is true, you have spent taxpayer dollars for that consultant. My logic says, why don't you first, via something as free as an email, send to the parents, would you agree that we need to spend taxpayer dollars on additional schools? If the parents say, no, we will not support that, you're done. There are no more tax dollars going to Joe Consultant. So the first thing is, find out if you have the community support. Don't spend another tax dollar to get all the propaganda, basically, to present to the village, this is what we need. If your village isn't going to support you, you just wasted all that money. Find out first if you've got the support. Next thing is, the quote that I read was that people are being told 22% of all of our students reside in the northeast corner of Palatine. Those students are currently serviced primarily, not exclusively, by Jane Addams, Virginia Lake, Lake Louise, and Winston campus. That's 4 schools out of our total population for 22% of the students. If some child has to take a bus a maximum of 3 miles, maximum, that's not hurting the kid. It's no big deal to take a bus for 3 miles. Kids out in the country ride a bus for an hour to get to their school. So don't make busing and transportation a reason to build 2 new schools. The concept of changing boundaries, and somebody threw out that you make friends for those 2 years in high school, and then you're traumatized because you go to high school and your friends aren't there anymore. You've got to make new friends. Well, I have 3 kids that have gone through this school district, know a ton of teenagers, college kids. Not one of them has ever said, oh, I missed the little girl that I saw in junior high. They make new friends in high school. That's what life is. So don't use the woe is me, the oh, poor little Johnny. He's going to be impacted because he's going to lose a friend. That's not logical. It's not common sense. Don't worry about it. Don't make decisions for silly reasons like that. The boundary changes, before any boundary is changed, take into consideration that people that have purchased houses and spent premium dollars because their child was going to go to a District 15 or a District 211 school. If those boundaries get changed, we're now there feeding a 214 school. That's not right to do to the investor of that house who paid the premium dollar for a 211 school. So you've got to think of the entire picture. The concept of adding another school or two schools in a state that is continually losing its population. The state of Illinois, people are running away. Nobody wants to stay. The companies that are staying are moving into Chicago. Motorola, which I'm sure has students, have workers who are living in Palatine, their company now has moved. They're not going to be bringing more people in. The jobs are now in the city. Same thing with Siemens, which was Arlington Heights. But again, some of them lived in Palatine. I'm sure they still do. But we're not going to get an influx of more people to substantiate the need for two more schools. The concept of parental involvement cracked me up because the populations that you're dealing with and concerned that we don't have parental involvement, that is strictly because the culture of foreign countries, primarily the attitude is my child goes to school, I respect my teachers and administration, and I don't get involved. That's not my job. So the parental involvement is a foreign concept. They don't go to PTA meetings because there was no such thing as a PTA in Germany, England, France, Lithuania, Mexico, Spain. It doesn't exist there. That's why you don't have parental involvement. Building a new school will not bring mom to the PTA meetings. That's not their culture. The concept of all-day kindergarten is basically all-day daycare. The highest rated educational system in the world is in Finland. The results they get from their children are rated the highest. The children of Finland do not begin school in formal basis until the age of 7. So the hype of all-day kindergarten does so much good for our kids. Let's look at Finland and see what they're doing, that they don't even have to have a kid in a formal school environment until the age of 7. So the answer is not all-day kindergarten. Is it necessary? Probably not. In the reality of life, the common sense of life, it's probably not. So don't use manufactured reasons to justify 2 new buildings that your population may not exist to fill those buildings in 10 years. And the buildings that you have now, if you need to tweak them a little bit to make them more efficient, that's what you do. I'm one of 10 children who grew up in a house with 1 bathroom. My father didn't have the dollars to build another bathroom. You deal with what you have. You don't have the dollars. You had to go out and take out a loan in the name of selling bonds to fix what you have. You don't have the dollars. Unless you get yes from the people of this town that they will support you and build these 2 new schools with their tax dollars, don't spend another nickel on a consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Joe Heater.
Wow, I'll never follow Jane again. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I think, as some of you know, I sent a letter to Scott and the board last week. I'm not sure who received it, although I did get 2 replies, plus yours, Scott, about the questions that I had. So it kind of be nice if the board would respond when citizens send in a letter. They say, hey, I got the letter. I'll consider it. But thank you for the 2 board members who did respond. And Scott, your response was very helpful for me to understand at least a little bit what's going on. It did.
If I just could though, Joe, I believe that I responded to you and I said that we were referring it, rather than have all the board members answer, that Dr. Thompson would be answering.
What I said was, two people responded and said, yes, thank you, I'll
Okay.
forward it on to Scott.
So we were concerned
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah.
responses, yes.
Couple things, I pretty much agree with what Jane had to say. One of my concerns is, and one of the primary concerns is, if we put a school in northeast Palatine, we're building a silo. Where, as you stated in your response, Scott, it looks like it's segregation. I believe it is. I have a great interest in education in this country. I don't think I have to take a backseat to anybody. For 15 years, as you know, Scott, I volunteered in this district, in this very building. I come here 3 days a week. I see the students. I know what's going on. At least in this building. I don't have an idea what's going on in the other buildings. So maybe my view is a little bit myopic. But I'm concerned that if we do this, we're going to segregate these students. We're going to build a silo. We're not going to give them an opportunity to become part of this country, because we know what the demographic of the students are that live in that northeast district. It's very, very clear. It's clear in the responses that you gave me. The main driver of this is that we want to take the lower socioeconomic students and provide them with some additional benefits. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. We're doing it in our current schools today. But I think by putting them all in one school, we're depriving them of the opportunity to associate with the rest of the members of the community. Okay? One of the other things you mentioned is about 2,800 students that live in that district, in that area. You said there was about 1,200 students that would be housed in the school there. That leaves maybe around 600 or so that have to be bussed out. How do we make a selection? Who gets to go to that school? Are we going to make it on ethnicity? Are we going to make it on income? Are we going to make it on merit? I don't think, I'm just not willing to make that kind of decision. I just don't think it's right. I'll kind of leave it at that. I would like to see, as you suggested, all this information posted on the district website. I think it's important for the community to understand what's going on. One thing that disappointed me in the presentation tonight, and maybe it wasn't their charter, but there was a lot of nice, we'd like to have this, we'd like to have A, we'd like to have B, C, D, E, F. I saw absolutely no cost associated with that presentation tonight. There's absolutely no way this community can move forward without knowing what the costs are. There is always a cost benefit associated with any action that you take. And the benefit has to be for the students. You and I agreed on my last paragraph where you said, yeah, I agree, it has to be for the students, and I absolutely agree with that. I'm not convinced that their primary proposal tonight is the best for the students of this district. I will put my comments in more of a written form than I have here tonight, and I hope you'll consider them, and the rest of us here that have talked tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want to come forward again to speak?
I mean, you had your 5 minutes, Jane. Why don't you send us an email? Send us an email. Send us an email, okay? You had your 5 minutes, I think. We're going to move on.
Sure.
Okay. We are going to move on to action items. Item 16-420, the personnel report. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the April 13th, 2016 personnel report as revised, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for the approval of a suspension and resolution authorizing issuance of a notice of remedial warning of Susan Carlson. Recommendation for the approval of letter of reprimand and 3-day suspension for Sharon Estes. Recommendation for the approval of termination of Lisa Cuellar.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Kahn?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Vernon?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 16-421, resolution for non-reemployment of part-time educational support personnel. Suggested motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the resolution, non-reemployment of part-time educational support personnel employees as follows. Christina Altamirano, Courtney DeGate, Janet Ganzer, Amy Henning, Katrina Lemmy, Betsy Mensch, Carol Nelson, Cynthia Naketa, and Denise Whistler.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Eckford?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16422, approval of Classroom Teachers Council Professional Agreement, 2016 to 2026.
I make a motion to approve the Classroom Teachers Council Professional Agreement 2016 to 2026 as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
Again, we talked a little bit about it earlier. I like where the basis of the contract is. I guess my concern, and we've heard it from some other people, the length of the contract sort of concerns me as the state of Illinois. We don't know where the state of Illinois is right now. That's my only concern. I agree with everything else that's within the contract. I think it's a well-negotiated contract. I think both sides did very well. My concern is the length and just the uncertainty of where, we all know what's going on down in Springfield, or we all don't know what's going on is the biggest question. So that's my concern, is the funding that's going to be the general state aid that we accumulate, busing aid and things like that down the road. That would be my only concern. But within that, I think the contract is a good contract, but that's a big concern of mine.
Okay.
Always unknowns.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, and I think also, because I know that's the discussion that, that makes this contract a little different from other contracts, but I think, to me, almost the uncertainty that you discussed is almost like, it almost necessitates, it actually makes, to me, it's like I see that same issue, but feel it as a positive for having a longer contract, that you kind of, you reserve the savings over 10 years, you lock it in place, given the potential of issues of funding in the future, like now we don't have funding and we don't have a contract down the road sometime, that could create, a bigger problem.
I guess the only question I would have, I don't know if I should direct this at Scott to you, is when we ran the 10 years, did we use an amount in those estimates from the state that were more on the conservative side and looking at more of a bleaker picture from the state? Or are we looking at pretty much similar to what we have right now? So when we ran the numbers for the whole 10 years, did we look at it as more of a, I guess, declining GSA and other benefits from the state versus level benefits? I guess would be the only question I would.
Well, we looked at the overall cost and considered what the cost of living would be, the consumer price index that will be affecting much of our revenue. We thought this is going to be well below the 20-year average of that figure. We also realized that if we didn't have a 10-year contract, this contract in a 4-year period would have cost us a lot more than what we got for 10 years. So the choice was go longer and get
longer savings.
We had a collaborative effort with the teachers to make sure that we could long-term keep the district in a financial position, strong financial position, or we go back to the protracted negotiations and they just try to get everything they can in a short period of time. So I think this benefits us, and there are always going to be unknowns, as Dr. Chapman said, and we have some fund balances that will absorb some of those things, and we keep working with our legislators to make sure that they do the right thing down there.
Good.
And I do think it creates it's a partnership. I think it's a commitment on both parts. I see it as a positive as well, and I appreciate all the time. It was a process that went over months, and I do appreciate that.
I think it also points to the fact that when we sit up here, even talking about facilities planning and that, you can't be just looking 3 years down the road. You have to be looking far down the road, and I think this is one of those things that helps us do that.
Well, I agree. I think, as Scott said, as you get into shorter-term contracts, the costs obviously crunch together, and you're more and more tight on the costs. As we can move it along longer, obviously there's quite a few benefits to it. So I agree.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Hunt?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16423, approval of the 2015-16 revised school calendar.
I make a motion to approve the 2015-16 revised school calendar as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
This just removes the emergency days that we're required to put in there. We didn't have any cold or snow days, and so hallelujah. We're going to have as much time this summer to do the work on the construction of the buildings.
We may get those in May.
I know.
Well, to me, that's the more, I don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like shortening the calendar for any reason, but we do have a major amount of work, and any few days that we can get a head start, I think that's going to be a real benefit for us.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Item 16, motion carries. Item 16424, approval of the District 15 board agreements. May I
I
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
make a motion to approve the Palatine Community Consolidated School District 15 board agreements as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 16425, bid award, waste disposal and recycling service.
I make a motion to award the contract for the waste disposal and recycling service bid 16-012 to low bidder, meeting bid specifications to Waste Management of Illinois, Inc., Wheeling, Illinois, for annual totals of $69,578.20 for 2016-17, $71,552 for 2017 and 18, and $73,611 for 2018 and 19, with the total three-year contract amount of $214,741.20 as recommended.
Second.
Discussion?
Seems like a lot of waste.
Roll call. Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Motion carries. 16426, bid award, fire alarm test and inspect. Suggested motion, please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the fire alarm test and inspect bid 16-013 to ESCO LLC, Mundelein, Illinois, based on low bid meeting specifications and past performance for an annual total of $16,548 for 2016 and 17, with a total three-year contract amount of $58,308 as recommended.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16427, bid rejection.
I make
for-
a motion to reject the bid for student transportation services at 16-14 as recommended. Second.
Discussion?
I apologize that I didn't give you more clarity on why I'm asking you to reject this. As you can see with all of the other actions the board has taken tonight, the cost of running a school district is very expensive. I mean, $214,000 over a three-year period for disposing of trash. $1 million, you're going to approve $1 million for some work in this building to create an elevator. A lot of money just to operate the school district. And so we're always trying to find ways, and Mike Damchek's really good about this, trying to find ways to save money. He and Tom Bramley looked at the cost of services that were being provided by the bidder, and we realized that we could do it in-house for half the cost. And because of the efforts of the personnel department, we've increased our number of drivers, and so we can cover it now. And so we're going to save the district money by having to reject this bid.
Great.
Roll call. Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 16428, bid award for elevator maintenance.
I make a motion to award the contract for elevator maintenance bid 16-015 to low bidder meeting specifications Jeffrey Elevator Company of Schaumburg, Illinois, for a 3-year contract in the amount of $86,640 as recommended.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Eckford?
Aye.
Con?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16429, bid award for the new elevator and theater seating projects.
I make a motion to award the contract for the new elevator and theater seating projects, general trades rebid 16-017 to Simpson Construction, Bellwood, Illinois, for a total bid award amount of $947,000 as recommended.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Con?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckford?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16430, approval of healthcare renewal 2016-17.
I make a motion to approve the proposed healthcare renewal 2016-17 medical, dental, and vision rates as recommended.
Second.
Discussion?
We're seeing a slight increase this year. The last few years has been a very slight increase or no increase at all. Our experience has required us to raise it just a modest amount this year, so this 6.2% I think is reasonable for everybody, and our Health Insurance Committee continues to meet to try to find ways to save money in that area.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckford?
Aye.
Con?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16432, the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent calendar? If not, may I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented with the exception of item M to be revised to read International 7400 Truck.
Roll call.
Second.
Oh, second, sorry. Roll call.
Seifert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckford?
Aye.
Con?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
We received 3 FOIA requests in the last period. On February 29th, 2016, a request was received from Bob Kaplan, Illinois Retired Teachers Association, Unit 90, Northwest Suburbs. The response to this request was sent on March 7th. On March 23rd, 2016, a request was received from Brenda Bacala, Illinois Policy Institute, Chicago. The response to this request was sent on March 29th. On March 25th, a request was received from Joseph Quain. The response to this request was sent on April 1st. Tonight, it's a special occasion. This is the 70th anniversary of the consolidation of School District 15. On April 13th, 1946, voters went to the ballots and they voted in the new school board, the first school board for the consolidation of 6 single schoolhouse districts into one consolidated School District 15. And so 70 years later, here we are on the very night that the first board was elected into place. And, I gave you some information about the consolidation and the anniversary. The first president was G.M. Sanborn. And this is what he said back then in 1946. The year 1946 will be one of the greatest years Palatine will have experienced if during that time reorganization of the elementary schools of the township becomes a reality. Better educational facilities for children of the village and their rural areas is a crying need. District 15 has been coasting along on school facilities provided 30 years ago when the present building was erected. It is a common sense that we can't ride all the time. We must get out and push a little. I think it's somewhat ironic that that was the statement back then 70 years ago, and tonight we have a presentation by a committee that's telling us I think it's time to get out and push again if we want to make sure that we're moving forward into the future to provide buildings for schools. And so I propose that 2016 might be a seminal year in the community and for District 15 if some of the things that the committee presented tonight become a reality. So tonight we're going to have some donuts. I present you with the anniversary copy of the Generations of Excellence. This is the historical account of District 15 over those 70 years. Most of it was produced by Joseph Kiska, and Joe Kiska is up in Wisconsin, 94 years old today, but we honor him, and instead of having a cake tonight, we're going to have some donuts. So there'll be some donuts set out here in Joe's honor, because whenever Joe came to the district office, he brought donuts.
Very nice booklet.
Yes,
Very
very.
nice.
One shameless plug too, Cinco de Mayo celebration, Thursday, May 5th, 5:30 to 8:30 at Falcon Park. It's a fun evening, always. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.